In Module 5, we're going to take a closer look at formative assessments. The resources for this come from James Popham's book, Transformative Assessment, and Dylan Wiliam's book, Embedded Formative Assessment. James Popham declares that the goal of formative assessment is to help teachers decide whether they need to adjust what they're currently doing instructionally or what they plan to do next instructionally. This presentation is going to go through a variety of ideas, concepts, and strategies, and what we're going to do is keep in mind how these can help us adjust our instruction. The presentation will have a series of slides that looks like this. There'll be the idea, concept, or strategy labeled at top, followed by a description and explanation. There'll be some resources which are hyperlinked, and some technologies, digital tools that support this idea, concept, or strategy. The first one we'll look at is traditional assessment procedures, which sometimes get a bad rap because they are traditional, but do have a place as appropriate measures of whether or not students have acquired knowledge. All student response is becoming very popular due to the advent of tools like Poll Everywhere on the web and technology hardware like Smart Response. All student response allows a teacher to get a live, at-the-minute reading of whether or not students understand the instruction or the concept. In the resources, the first link gives you a non-techie way of doing this using response cards. You can ask students whether or not they understand it. Students' self-declared level of understanding oftentimes is used with traffic light cups or plastic cups that are red, yellow, and green. And students would hold up the color to indicate how well they're understanding that particular idea. Exit slips are also another way that students can declare how well they understand an idea. Item sampling is something new. You can see that I don't have any resource links and very few technologies. In item sampling, a teacher might take a test, let's say a 10-question quiz, and rather than give all 10 questions to everyone, the teacher could divide it up and have students do portions of the test. And these come back as samples that can give a teacher an idea of how well the student understands the various concepts. Open-ended response is moving away from knowledge recognition and recall into more of a student-constructed knowledge. Here students might generate a one-word or brief response. In Dylan Wiliam's book, in Chapter 4, he really spends a lot of time on questions and answers the question, why ask questions, with this answer. Questions elicit information about what to do next. So recall James Popham, in the beginning of our presentation, had stated that formative assessment is necessary for teachers to adjust their instruction. It follows then that questions are going to give information to the teacher about what adjustments to make. It's a couple examples of questions that not only cause thinking, but would give you an insight into the student's thinking. For instance, the second one, which way does light travel? From my eye to the object, or from the object to my eye? There is a yes-no component to this answer, but with explanation, you would be able to get a glimpse as to how the student understands the concept. And with that information, you would have an idea of how you need to adjust instruction so that they can understand the concept better. In the resource links, you will see one link to a blog from Edutopia which describes how you can improve your questions. And there's also a link to the next step, which would be teaching students to ask their own question. Random response to questions is important according to Wiliam, because it signals to students that everyone must be prepared with an answer. There's 4 strategies here. Popsicle sticks is one I've seen used oftentimes in classrooms. There's even an app called Stick Pick that will make that a digital activity. The one I really was drawn to is the first one, pose, pause, pounce, and bounce. In this one, a teacher would pose a question to the entire class and then pause, giving proper wait time for students to think. And then the teacher would pounce by randomly asking a student for their answer, and then bounce that answer to another student, perhaps asking them what do they think or how might they extend that. I like this because it involves numerous people, the whole class, and then a single student and then another one, and it becomes more of a discussion perhaps rather than a identify the right answer kind of activity. William brings up question shells, which are scaffolded question prompts. And here a question could be transformed into a reframed question. For instance, in an English class there might be a question, is this a sentence or a clause? Which asks for a right or wrong answer. The question shell would be, why is blank an example of blank? For instance, why is this a clause rather than a sentence? So here the student is not recalling or recognizing a correct answer, but has to construct a response to explain an answer. Again, this is going to give us information into the student's thinking, which can then help us understand how instruction may change. You can also do this with a contrasting question shell. Is a bat a mammal? Can be reframed into, why is a bat a mammal and a penguin is not? Turning questions into statements is a powerful strategy because statements require justification in the form of facts and reasons. For example, are all squares rectangles? Would elicit a yes or no answer. But by making it into a statement, all rectangles are squares, the student would then need to justify. And again, they'd have to construct a response, and to construct this response, they'd have to use information that they've learned or know. This strategy could also work well with a think, pair, share, making it into a cooperative activity between peers as opposed to a teacher-generated question.